Aloha, this is Brian Watkins, and you are looking at my tutorial video for Excel exam number 6, the Retirement Investment Calculator. In this exam, we're going to learn how to use the lookup function. We're going to do it 2 different ways, and I'm going to show you introduce some logic functions to you. So now we're going to kick things up a notch. We're going to start using our spreadsheet in landscape mode. So when I go File, Print, right here where it says Portrait Orientation, now you have to change it to Landscape. Default is Portrait. This means the wide side of the paper will be at the top. So we're going to take columns A through L, and we're going to make them a 14. We're going to give plenty of room to work here. Okay, I'm going to increase my screen, and our title is going to be the Retirement Investment Calculator, and prepared by myself, prepared on, heavens, it's not May, and a purpose line. This spreadsheet will collect a number of assumptions regarding a person's salary, benefits, and rates of return, which will then be used to estimate the value of that person's retirement account at a certain point in the future selected by the user. Okay, don't make this too hard. We're just doing a straight retirement account. We're going to put money into the account. It's going to get money from us and from our employer, and we want to be able to pick any number of years. If I retire in 20 years or retire in 30 years, how much money will I have? Now, because it's on the wide side of the paper, we don't want the print all the way across the front. So let's just go, say, to let's do to E. We'll use 5 columns here: merge, wrap, top, and side. Okay, so there's our title section, and we're going to do our data. So the data section, and we're going to keep our data section bar on the first page. So we'll use a light color for the data section, and we're going to collect a lot of data. Now if you look at your test, you'll see that we're going to start with a cell that's going to have today's date in it. Then we're going to do our investor's current age, the desired retirement age, annual salary, anticipated salary increase rate. Okay, and then we're going to have our annual employee contribution. This is how much of your pay you contribute to your investment. And the annual employer contribution, which reflects how much your employer puts in. And finally, we want to know how much the investor has started with, original investment balance. And we'll take and get the rate of return on investment. Okay, now this is a lot of stuff, but we're going to do a special check routine, and we're going to ask, is the data complete? And we're going to program a cell that will double check and make sure that we've entered all of this information. So we take it all, and we're going to do Control Shift F3. Done. Then we're going to cut these and put them over in the E column. Okay, now today's date, we're going to use a function. I'm going to introduce you to a date function here. Excel will always give you the date if you use the today function, which is the very minimum information. You just type today, open and close parentheses, and it gives you the date. So we're going to center that. But I want to just take a moment and explain what the date is. If I take the formatting off, you'll see a 5-digit number, and this is the number of days from January 1st of 1900. So if you're ever playing with a date and you say, wait a minute, I did use a today function, why is it giving me that number? It's because somehow you must have lost the date format. And date formats, if I go to more number formats, I can personalize the date format any which way I want, including hours, minutes, and seconds if I wanted to. Okay, the reason we do today's date is that we have the date that it was prepared, but if I print this out in, say, a year from now, I want the printout to bear the date that I printed out. So tomorrow this will change to 7/23, whereas my prepared on will always say July 22nd. All right, our current age, 30, desired retirement age, 65. Our annual salary is $60,000. We think our salary is going up about 3.15%. We're going to contribute 7% because we're a smart employer or smart employee there. We're going to have to calculate the employer contribution. The original investment balance, let's say that we started with $30,000 and we're making 9.5%, which is pretty good. All right, so let's get the formatting done. We're going to take all of these and we're going to center them. And then all of these get the color background because those are the numbers it's okay to change. Dollars and cents, we're going to use currency. For percentages, we're going to use the percentage, but we're going to put in a couple decimals there. Okay, and currency for that number. All right, so there's our stuff. Now, we also have a table. And the way this works is, if I contribute nothing, my employer contributes nothing. If I contribute 1%, the employer contributes 1%. But here it changes. If I do 2, the employer gives 2.25. If I do 3, the employer gives 3.5. And in this fashion, the employer incentivizes me to save more money so I can get a higher contribution. But that's going to be information that we have to program in. So let's start up here right on the line with our 30. And we're going to call this a contribution table, and we're going to have an employee and an employer. Okay, and since we know we're going to make these all percentages, let's take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's take that whole area now and pre-program it as a percentage. Okay, so now when I enter my 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it all comes up as percent. And employer, I'm taking this off the test, 0, 1, 2.25, 3.5, 4.75, 5.95. All right, so let's do some formatting now. We want them all centered, and we want these to have a couple decimals so we know what's going on. These numbers can change at any time, so they get a blue background. Okay, contribution table. We want it centered over both of those, so I'm going to do the merge and center. We've been using that for our title section, but this is what it's really for. It's for putting a heading over a certain number of columns. So there we go. And we're going to bold that, and then we're going to take these two as column headings, bold, underline, and center, and we're going to put some lines on this. Okay, so I'm going to put a line on the right hand side by going to borders and shading and saying give me a right border on those cells. There it is. And at the top, and I'm going to say give me a top border. So when this prints, it'll have that line, because on plain paper you don't have the grid that you see on the spreadsheet, and that makes it easier to read. Now, here's a great skill. you can not only name cells, see that 30 is known by investor's current age, I can name a table. So I'm going to take all of those numbers and I'm going to say formula, define name, and I'm going to call it contribution table. And it's going to give me absolute addresses. This is so important when you're using lookups, because your lookup formula, you may copy it down a table. And if you copy a lookup formula down and you use relative addresses, then your definitions are going to slide down as well, so that the 0 might not be your first line. Might become 1 is your first line, and then 2 is your first line. So by defining the table with that double $ reference here, let's look down there, see, you're safe. You'll always refer to the same cells when you say contribution table. Now, why do we do all this? Because we're going to use probably the second most effective function in Excel next to if, and it's the VLOOKUP, which means vertical lookup. The vertical lookup, you can read it right off the screen. It looks at the leftmost column of a table and matches a number to it, and then reads the result off whatever column you tell it. Okay, so first, what's my lookup value? What do I input into this function? I'm inputting the amount the employee contributes. Okay, and I'm going to hit F3 here, and I'm going to use my contribution table to figure out the answer. Where's my answer going to be? It's going to be in column 2. Now this table could have 100 columns. I could have employee and then information about their work, their address, their rates of pay. I could put it all into a huge table and just pick out whatever column I want. Here, it's a simple table. I want number 2. And this table, because I'm looking at numbers, I'm going to use an approximate match by saying true. That's important here, because with an approximate match, even though my 7 is not found in this side of the table, it will just slide up these values and stick at the 5 and give me that 5.95. So if I change this 7 to a 4, now it backs down to the 4.75. The trick with the approximate lookup is you can never go below the lowest number. So if I wasn't printing this out for a client, I'd do something like this, because I know I'd never be lower than that. But I'm printing it out for a client. I don't want to explain what's going on, so I'm going to put a 0 there and hope that nobody puts something negative. If they put something negative, then I get an error because the table doesn't go that low. So here's the second thing. There's a function that goes together with this VLOOKUP like peanut butter and jelly. You just always use the two together and you'll be safe no matter what. And that function is called if_error. If_error. And I'm going to put a parenthesis, and that value here is going to be my entire VLOOKUP. And at the end of the VLOOKUP, I'm going to put a comma. And now I can put a number or I can put a message. I like to use a message because the message tells me that there's a problem. If I just put 0 there, I might not pay attention to it. I might miss something. But if I tell out of table and I see that pop up, that tells me there's a problem. Okay, now I'm fairly sure I'm never going to have anything negative. But here's a common problem. What if I say 4.5%? Well, it'll stay at the 4 until it gets to 5. So no matter what I put, if I put 4.9999999, it'll round it up, and I'll see a 5 there, but the lookup table won't go to the 5 until that's an actual 5. Okay? Now, if I have false here, this table will only work if there's an exact match. So it'll work just fine with a 1 or a 2. But if I use 1.5, it's out of table. Okay? Or if I didn't have my if error function there, it would say not, it would be a hashtag NA. So whenever you're using numbers, always be sure to program a true or approximate match. Okay? If you're using social security numbers or you're using numbers that match ages, you would want an exact match. Last names, for example, you'd want an exact match. But here, let it be approximate so that your person can put 4.75 and you don't have to worry about coding a 4.75. All right, let's put it back to 7 and let's move on to the next step. We're doing a very important piece of work here that people will rely on, and so we want to make sure that we don't print out anything that could cause trouble. And you get in trouble with spreadsheets when people don't enter all the information the spreadsheet asks for. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an if statement to see if our data is complete. It's either complete or not complete. Our if statement is going to be true or false. Okay, now what's our test? Well, we're going to test 8 things at once. The 30, the 65, all of these. We want them all to be sensitive. So I'm going to use the OR function. With an OR function, if any one of these things is bad, the whole thing is bad. Okay, so if any one of these things is blank, then I know I've got a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check each one. Is current age equal to a blank, comma, is desired retirement age equal to a blank? And I'm going to go carefully through each one of these numbers, including the number that's provided by my lookup, equals. Now you're not going to be able to see this until I finish. Okay, but on the last one, there we go. We're going to stop without a comma, and I'm going to close my OR function. Okay, so there's my test. OR is going to be true if any of these things are true. For an AND to be true, they all have to be true. Okay, and it's from the OR and the AND that your entire computer arises. All a computer is a bunch of ORs and ANDs. So here, if any of them are blank, comma, my value if true is false. Okay? So if the OR is true, I want the output to be a logical value false. There's no quotes on that false. That's an actual function. Okay, I'm not using the word false. I'm using a logical value false. I'll show you why in a minute. Okay, now, the last part, I'll move this up so you can see it. We have our test. We have our value of true, which is false. If there's no blanks, okay, if our OR happens to be false, meaning it couldn't find any blanks, our is data complete is true. I don't know why it's fighting me so much on that. Okay. So that is the complete formula for that cell. You have an OR statement that looks at each one of these. So you should have a little box around all 8 of those variables. If any of them are blank, my data is not complete. There we go. So is our data complete? True. If one of them turns blank, that becomes false. And it can be any one of them. That one could be missing. And what I've done, since this cell, true false, has a name is data complete question mark, I can use that throughout my project to tell me whether data is complete or not, without having to retype all of that. So let's go to our summary answer section, where we're just going to give the quick answer. Here's how much you have at retirement. And we're just going to the end of the first page here. Let's give it its, let's use a green here. So there's our summary section. Now, before we get started with the numbers, you can make your spreadsheets talk to your users. You can use text instead of numbers. So I'm going to have an if statement, and that if statement is going to change based on whether data is complete. Okay, now I don't want you to panic here about having to come up with words. I've typed the whole thing for you here in your test. And so you just learn this and know that you don't have to memorize it, but you do have to know how it works. Okay, so the if statement has to have a logical test. My logical test is just going to be a reference to the is data complete cell. You do not have to say is data complete equal to true or false, because it is true or false already. So all you have to do is reference that cell, comma. Okay, if it's true, what do we want to do? If it's true, let's print out a sentence that says, assuming retirement in space. Now, if you look at the test, I'm supposed to insert the year here. So I'm going to close my text string with a double quote. If I want to put text together with formulas or together with numbers, I can use the AND symbol. Okay, the long word for that is concatenation. But I'm building up an output string with different parts. So that AND symbol now says, okay, we're going to shift gears. Now what I want to do is I want to figure out what year is my retirement going to take place in. Now think about that. First thing you need is the current year. The current year can be found by referencing today's date, which you can either click up here because you named it. That would be fine. Or you could just say today and get the today code in there that way. Now, if I print this, I'll close it and print it. It says 2016. Okay, but I don't want 2016. I want the year today plus the number of years until I retire. Okay, how many years until I retire? If I start when I'm 30 and retire when I'm 65, that's 35. I get that by taking the 65 and subtracting the 30. And you note I'm not hard coding. I'm using the variable, because then whatever those numbers are, the formula will calculate the correct retirement year. Okay, so now, assuming retirement in 2051, well, what if I retire at 64? Then I'm retiring in 2050. Okay, so we've made a little statement there that's pretty smart. Now I want to finish my sentence, so I'm going to put another and there, another double quote to signal that I'm going back to text, and I'm going to say, comma, space, with no changes in the information provided, and a colon. Okay, that's my true condition. So now I'm going to put a comma. The comma is going to switch me now into the false condition. The false condition is just, please enter all requested data so that estimates may be provided. Okay, so I have a true statement and a false statement. I have to put it in an if statement because I have to have a way of telling it whether to go on this track or this track, true or false. Okay, where's my typo? Too many apostrophe or parentheses there. That looks better. Okay, and let's bold it. Now you can see that if there's some missing data, it's going to be a totally different sentence. All right, so I can fix this. I notice a little bit of a problem here. I can put a period on that, and I don't think retirement should be capitalized. Okay, so there's my false condition, and there's my true condition. And I've buried in it a number that calculates by itself. So you can do all kinds of great things with spreadsheets here. You could have, for example, the headings on your columns change from one word to the next, depending on whether you're looking at a person who's single or married or something like that. All right, so now let's do our summary answer. We're going to have beginning investment, the employee contribution, the employer contribution, my total contributions, my accumulated earnings, and my balance at retirement. Okay, so let's do this again. We've got beginning investment, employee contribution, employer contributions, total contributions, accumulated earnings, and balance at retirement. These are the answers that we want to give to our client. So let's center, bold, and the lower line underline. Now, we have to go and calculate most of this information, but there's beginning investment we can do. Now, it's a requirement that our entire spreadsheet go blank if the data is not complete. So I have to remember in your exercise 4 how you had an if statement on everything that prints. So I'm going to say if, I'm just going to click on data complete. If data is complete, then give me my beginning investment. Okay. If it's not complete, give me a blank cell. Very simple. And let's format that as a centered currency. There we go. We also are going to have check figures on the total contributions and the balance at retirement. So let's do another little note here. We'll put the check figure and we'll slide it off to the side here. So if for some reason we're missing something, it'll all go blank. But if we're okay, then we'll see check figure. Now the reason I had you do check figure here is so that you could see blank line, and now we're at our detailed answer section. Now this one's going to go all the way out to column L. And I want you to use a dark color on this, even a black. Now you're going to run out of colors pretty quick, and you're going to have working groups with more than 5-6 people, so someone's going to have to get a dark color. If that happens, you just turn your print white. There you go. And you can use a whole range of colors there. So if you have a light color, use dark print. If you have a dark color, use light print. All right, now we're going to build a table, and we're going to use VLOOKUP to find our retirement age in the table and give us an answer. So we're going to have a column for the year, age, your salary, the beginning balance of your investment, year-to-date earnings on your investment, year-to-date contributions, the ending balance of your investment, accumulated earnings, accumulated contributions, end balance, a second time, and then a check figure. Okay, this is going to be a big table. So I'm going to bold, underline, and center. All right, let's take a look at the test here. We're told that our lookup table must begin with year 0 and must be capable of displaying at least 60 years of data. Okay, so we're going to have a formula here that's going to tell us 0 through 60. All right, so it has to blank. So we're going to say if data is complete, give us a 0. Otherwise, give us a blank. That's our first part of it. Since it's complete, we're seeing the 0. For the next one, we're going to say if data is complete, take the number above and add 1 to it. Otherwise, go blank. Okay. And then we can just copy that because it's self-contained in one formula down to 60, which would be it's about 80 or 90. Whoops. Way too far. Oh, look at that. Close. Okay, so we're going to move that up. We don't want just 60 years. Okay, this is a framework that we're going to build the rest of our table on. Now, the way we handle age is to pull up the age first, and we have to look at whether that year number is blank so that we can go blank if we have to. So we're going to go get the current age, and we're going to add to it the year in the prior row. Okay, so that way we come in with the right year, and if we copy it down, we get that full range. And that range will change depending on what we say. So if a 50-year-old comes in and says, hey, I'm going to retire at 80, that age range changes to fit your customer. So let's put those back, and let's do the salary. Okay, again, if the year number is blank, stay blank. Otherwise, okay, this is a two-part. We have to start with the salary. Okay, so there's our salary. We're going to make it a comma because we're in a table now. And then the next one, if year, now notice I'm in the same row. Okay, you have to stay on the row with this. If B33 is blank, then go blank. Otherwise, now I have to take my salary number from before. Okay, and I'm using a relative reference here so that it always just says the cell above times 1 plus the salary increase rate. Okay, and I'll close that. The 1 will bring in the 60,000, and then the rate times the 60,000 will be the increase. So we'll get like 62 here, 61.8. Okay, if I had just said times the salary increase rate, it would just give me the increase. What the 1 plus does is that includes the principal as well. So now I can copy that down, and my salary will increase by the salary increase rate all the way down. All right, the beginning balance has nothing whatsoever to do with your salary. This is the balance in your investment account. So we have a year 0 here. Let's go and let's say if year 0 is a blank, then this will be blank. Otherwise, get us the original investment balance. Okay, so year 0 comes in handy for things like this. And then all I have to say here is if year 1 is blank, stay blank. Otherwise, just give me the end balance from the prior year. Okay, so I don't have to do a two-part formula here because I had that year 0. So there's my beginning balance, and I'll copy that down. Now, what are my earnings? My earnings, if year 1 is equal to blank, stay blank. Are you seeing a pattern here? Every single column has the same if statement at the beginning, which allows us to blank the entire chart in the event that our data is not complete. All right, so our earnings are the balance of our investment times the rate of return on our investment. Okay, the hardest thing I think about this project is getting those 4 percentage rates correct. You have 1 to increase the salary, you have 1 to show how much money you're making, which right here is a couple $1,000. And then you have 2 to show you how your contributions work. So if it's equal to blank, stay blank. Now, my contributions come from my salary. My earnings come from my investment. So what I'm going to do is take the salary now, and I'm going to multiply it times both contribution rates. That's why we have 2 contribution rates. That means if I contribute 7%, my employer contributes 5.95%, and I end up getting almost 13%. So there we go. So that's our contributions. So just remember, contributions come from salary, earnings come from the balance, and then my ending balance, so if year 1, okay, my ending balance is the sum of my beginning balance through my contributions. Do not include your salary. Okay, your salary is all spent. You pay your rent and you buy your food with salary. The only thing you're saving is what you earn and what you contribute. So make sure that you understand that this sum only goes back to that 30. And that tells you how much. If I take these three now and double click down to the bottom, I know how much I have in my account right here. This tells me if I retire when I'm 50, I've got this much. But it doesn't tell me how much of that number came from all the contributions I made. So how do I add all these up and return them when I have to get my answer? And the way we do that is we create running totals. Okay, so now I'm going to say, if the year number is blank, stay blank. Otherwise, take the prior year's total and add it to the current year's earnings. That's simple. Okay, keep your earnings with earnings and your contributions with contributions, and you'll do just fine. So here I have my first year, 2,850, and my second year I'm going to add that 3,800, and then I'm going to add the 4.9, and so on. That way I can see not only did I retire, just choose 39 as an example, not only did I retire with 210, but I can tell exactly that 91,000 of it came from just my interest earnings. Okay, contributions. If my year number is blank, then stay blank. Otherwise, take the prior total of contributions and add to it the year-to-date contribution. Same kind of formula, but you're keeping contributions with contributions. All right. Now we have our running totals. So now we can find out our end balance. But there's a trick to the second one. So if our year is blank, stay blank. Otherwise, take the amount we started with, the original investment balance, add to it our total earnings, add to that our total contributions, and we should have a balance that matches what we did over here. Okay, so just to do it again, you have your original investment balance. Don't forget that. And then add to it your accumulated contributions. And then finally your check figure. Now, I know that my year number is over in column B. I can't see column B, but I can see that row 32 is the active row. So I say B32 equals blank, stay blank. Otherwise, take one ending balance and subtract the second ending balance. Make it a comma. And you'll find as you copy this down that you'll have some positive zeros, some negative zeros. That just means there's a little rounding error. So if I took the format off, you'd see that tiny, tiny point with 11 zeros in it. Okay, and here it was negative. Here that rounding error looks like it's just a little positive, but it's tiny. Okay, so your check figures should all be 0. Now, here's something to think about. If I screwed up this formula by forgetting the original investment balance, my check figure would be saying 30,000 is wrong all the way down. Hopefully, you would tie that in your mind to the fact that, oh, I forgot to add that original $30,000. So I see students sometimes turn in tests with the check figure telling them exactly what they did wrong, and the student didn't correct it. All right, so here I'm going to now make my screen a little more inclusive. We are going to get the answers to our summary answers from our desired retirement age in this table. That means my desired retirement age has to be in the first column of the lookup table. So the first column of your lookup table has to be age. It's not the year. Okay, now you don't need your check figure. Just make sure that your first column has retirement age in it. Do not use the year. Once I have them all selected, I'm going to define the name. I'm going to call this my retirement table. Okay, my answers are all there. And I can change easily from one age to the next by using my VLOOKUP. So let's do the total contributions. Okay, I have to shift gears now. I'm no longer looking at the year to see if the year goes blank or not. Now I'm looking at the data complete. If data is complete, comma, do a VLOOKUP with my lookup value being my desired retirement age, with my table being my retirement table. See it nice purple there? And where's my answer? Well, contributions is found in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 8th column has the accumulated contribution. So I put an 8 there, and I want an exact match because I'm never going to get someone entering 30.5. So I'm just going to say, give me an exact match. All right, now, that's what to do if it's true. Don't forget, comma, double quote. If it's false, you want it to be a blank cell. If you forget that, the word false will show up. Okay, let's do a consistent. We're going to center this as currency. There we go. We can do the same thing for earnings now. If is data complete, comma, VLOOKUP on retirements. Oh, it's desired, isn't it? Desired retirement age. I'm hitting the tab to pull in what's in blue. And the retirement table. And I want column for earnings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I want it to be exact. And if data is not complete, I want it to be a blank cell. So that will get me my accumulated earnings. So I'm going to make that currency, and I'm going to center it. All right, now I've got all my information for balance at retirement. So I'm going to say if is data complete, add my beginning investment to my contributions to my accumulated earnings. Otherwise, go blank. And there's my balance at retirement, which will be currency and centered. Now our check figure for the retirement is simply to pull it up from below. So is data complete, VLOOKUP on desired retirement age in the retirement table, and my balance at retirement is in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, 8, or 9. So I can use 6. I'm going to use an exact match. And I'm going to subtract from that figure this figure up here. So that if it's right, I'm going to have a 0 there. I have a little tiny rounding error, but that's effectively a 0. All right, now the contributions come from two sources, from the employee and from the employer. And there's going to be a little bit of a complicated formula here. So we're going to name total contributions. This will make it easier. Total contributions. All right, now if I add these two up, I get 12.95. And so if I take a fraction and I add up the 7 and the 5 to get the 1, I can then put just the 7 over the 12.95 to get how much comes from here. I can put the 5.95 over the sum of the both to get how much came from the annual employer contribution. Okay, so let's see how that programs out. So if data is complete, comma, what I want to do is I want to take my total contributions and multiply it times a fraction that has employee contributions as the numerator and has the sum of both contributions as the denominator. So close the denominator, close the fraction, comma, double quote for a blank cell. Okay? That's for the employee contribution. You're going to have the employee over the sum of the rates. And that's going to be currency and centered. Now, here's how it's easy. Since my formula uses names and they're absolute references, I can slide it over You can see how it's computing the same. Go into edit mode, but this time take the numerator and change it from employee to employer. Okay, so now that employer is on top, hit enter. That's all you had to do. Now, 7% is going to give you a higher number than 5.9. So it looks like it worked right. The check figure is pretty easy to remember. What we're going to do is take the total contributions and subtract each one of these, the employer and the employee. If we did it right, it's 0. All right. Now let's check our blanking. This is the, I'm curious, but a lot of students forget to do the blanking. So if we have some sort of missing data, everything should go blank. Now, if you've made a mistake, it's most often you forgot to put the double quotes up here in your summary section. So when you go blank, you see this. It says false. Why does it say false? Because you forgot to tell it what to do if it says false. So there's a value of true, but there's nothing there for false. So I'm going to put a comma, because I don't want to lose that. So let's go to edit mode. I'm going to put a comma, double quote, space. Now that false goes away. So my 0.0315, put that back. Everything comes back the way it's supposed to be. Okay? Make sure you know how to do a VLOOKUP, because most employers who ask you if you know Excel will ask you if you know how to do a VLOOKUP, because it really is one of the most powerful functions you can use. All right, let's clean it up. We're going to put our header footer in. So we'll have a custom footer. Let's just put the footer in the far right. Okay, the other thing we're going to do here, all our client wants are the answers here in the summary section. So I'm going to put a page break right there. And let's take a look at our output. There we go. And that's exactly what we want to see. We don't need to see all of the other stuff. That can be printed out, put in a file somewhere. But this way, when you send this to somebody, there's a note. That's the day you prepared it. So these numbers, if they change, because numbers will change over time, you're going to have, it's hard to say what your annual salary is going to be 35 years in the future. So you want to make sure that anything you say makes it clear to your client what it's based on. Okay, so what I did here is said if there's no changes in the information, then this is a good estimate. But we all know there's going to be change. All right, this is a long project. Yes, there are lots of formulas, but if you've paid attention, other than the VLOOKUP, there's no formulas in this that you haven't already used. I give you a full hour on this exam, and I provide some extra credit. Okay, so at this point, if you're done and you're ready to go take it, go take it. But I'm going to show you how to do the extra credit. All right, so let's go back here. Save it. Don't forget to save your work before you go looking for extra credit, because if you screw it up, at least you get your test points right. All right, extra credit. If you are able to successfully blank the rows in the detail section, which reflect retirement ages beyond that given in the data section, without impairing the function of the spreadsheet, you could get 5 points. You can't just erase data. You have to use a formula for this. So what this means is, if I were to say, we're going to retire at age 35, I would want to see everything below the age of 35 automatically go blank. Now, I can't change the function that makes this go blank. I have to add to it. So here's how you do that. We built our second table in such a way that if I get rid of the year, everything in that row goes blank automatically. So what we're going to do is put our logic here in the year. All right, then we're going to put an if statement inside another if statement. This is called a nested if statement. So where are we going to change? If data is complete, then we're going to put our number. We're going to put something here in the true condition, because if data is not complete, we don't care. So what we're going to do is we're going to put another if statement inside the true condition, and it's going to ask a question. It's going to say, let's see here, is the age in the row above us greater than or equal to the desired retirement age? Okay, let me move this out of the way. There we go. Okay, so if I'm on line 1 and the age above me is greater than or equal to the desired retirement age, then go blank. But if it's not, give me my number. And then I close that. That's very important. You have that if statement needs an open parenthesis, which is red, and a closing parenthesis. Okay, so here's my test, here's my true, and here's my false. Now if I go into the second if, here's my second test, my second true, my second false. Alright, now I've only changed the first one, so I have to double click to send it down. Now let's, moment of truth. So I'm going to say I retire at 40. And I come down here and look at that. So my age, what happened here, okay, let's look at this schedule. It looked up there at 40 and it said, is it greater than or equal to my retirement age? It is. So I better go blank, as did all of the formulas after that. So that's the extra credit. The extra credit is to do a nested if statement. Now if you think about it, think how many if statements you shaved off with this one contribution table. Is the number greater than 0? Is it greater than 1? Is it greater than 2? Is it greater than 3? Is it greater than 4? So you saved 6 ifs right there with the lookup. Okay, so you really have all the Excel skills now to go out and do some pretty complicated work. That's what your employers are paying for. So show me you can do that extra credit. I give 2 points of extra credit if you remember to put the peanut butter and jelly together. By that I mean you put an if error correctly together with your VLOOKUP here. And you need to use if error if it's a approximate table, because there's a potential that it could go bad. When you create your own table, I rarely use if error when I've created my own table, because I know that my own table is always going to be in the range that these two numbers are. Why? Because I used these two numbers to create the table. So I don't use it in that situation. In any event, let's put this back. Let's make sure that the whole thing blanks. Okay, our change, our extra little logic didn't prevent it from blanking. So that's good extra credit. And with that, you've finished test 6. So good luck.